Imagine being told your own mother can no longer speak to you because you asked a question about your faith. Imagine being part of a warm, close-knit community, only to be cast out and silenced for expressing a doubt. This isn't a dystopian novel. This is the lived reality of thousands who leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. They come to your door with smiles, dressed neatly, holding literature about hope, peace, and God's kingdom. To many, they seem kind, sincere, and deeply committed to their beliefs. But what happens when you step beyond the front porch, behind the public face of the Watchtower organization? What's life like on the inside? Today, we take you into that world, not to attack, but to understand. Because behind the discipline and structure lies a powerful story of control, loyalty, loss, and courage. The origins, the birth of a movement. The Jehovah's Witnesses didn't begin with a divine revelation or an ancient church council. Their origins trace back to the late 1800s in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, under the leadership of a man named Charles Taze Russell. Russell wasn't a pastor. He was a businessman with a deep fascination for Bible prophecy. Dissatisfied with mainstream Christianity, he began his own Bible study group. That group would grow, publish literature, and eventually become the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, now known globally as Jehovah's Witnesses. From the very beginning, this movement rejected traditional Christian beliefs. They denied the Trinity, dismissed the concept of hell as a place of eternal torment, and preached that Christ had already returned, but invisibly. They emphasized that the world was nearing its end, and only those who followed their interpretation of the Bible would survive the coming destruction. Over the decades, they made several specific predictions: that the world would end in 1914, then 1925, then 1975. Each time, when the end didn't come, the leadership adjusted their interpretation, and the faithful stayed. Let's look at the structure and obedience, the life inside the congregation. Today, Jehovah's Witnesses are among the most tightly organized religious groups in the world. With over 8 million active members, they operate under the guidance of a governing body, a small group of men located in Warwick, New York, who oversee all doctrine, practice, and behavior. They claim to be the sole channel through which Jehovah communicates with humanity. This belief places their interpretations beyond question. Disagreeing with the governing body isn't just disobedience, it's considered rebellion against God. Members are encouraged to submit every aspect of their lives to the organization's guidance. That includes how they dress, what music they listen to, what movies they watch, and even what kind of friends they keep. Celebrating birthdays, Christmas, or national holidays, all strictly prohibited. Not because of health or ethics, but because the organization deems these practices rooted in paganism or worldliness. The end is near, how it shapes their lives. The Witnesses firmly believe that we are living in the last days and that Armageddon is just around the corner. This belief colors everything. Long-term planning is discouraged. Why go to college when the world is ending soon? Why build a career or save for retirement when Jehovah's kingdom will replace human governments any day now? Many members forego higher education, relationships with non-witnesses, and personal ambitions, believing these things are distractions from their spiritual goals. And this isn't a passive choice. Members are regularly reminded in meetings and publications that time is short. That urgency creates a life lived in a state of spiritual alertness, one that often comes with anxiety, guilt, and a constant fear of being found unfaithful. The blood and medicine, where doctrine meets life and death. One of the most controversial teachings of the Jehovah's Witnesses is their refusal of blood transfusions. Based on a specific reading of verses in Leviticus and Acts, they believe that accepting a transfusion is equivalent to disobeying God's command to abstain from blood. To outside observers and to medical professionals, this belief has had tragic consequences. Children have died. Accident victims have perished. Families have been forced to make excruciating choices, not based on medical advice, but on religious obligation. Yes, the organization promotes bloodless surgery, and yes, they encourage discussions with doctors. But when a life is on the line, the doctrine stands firm. The Judicial Committees, when you break the rules. What happens when someone within the faith questions a teaching, violates a rule, or commits a serious sin? They may be summoned to what's called a judicial committee, a private meeting with congregation elders. These elders are not trained counselors, therapists, or legal professionals, yet they wield the authority to determine whether a person is repentant or must be disfellowshipped. Disfellowshipping is excommunication. It means total shunning by family, friends, everyone in the congregation. No calls, no hugs, no dinners, nothing. A teenager who questions a teaching could be cut off. A woman leaving an abusive marriage could be expelled. A man who attends a Christmas party might be ostracized. And this shunning is not a temporary cooling-off period. It can last years, even decades, until the person returns, shows sufficient remorse, and is reinstated. The abuse and silence, when the system fails the vulnerable. In recent years, the Jehovah's Witnesses have faced growing scrutiny over how they handle sexual abuse allegations. The two-witness rule, a doctrine requiring 2 eyewitnesses to any wrongdoing before action is taken, often makes it nearly impossible to validate claims of abuse. Many survivors say they were told to stay silent. Some were forced to confront their abusers in meetings with elders. In countless cases, law enforcement was never contacted. Royal commissions, media investigations, and court cases have revealed patterns of institutional protection, placing the reputation of the organization above the safety of its members. The trauma left behind is immeasurable. The women, marriage, and submission. Within the Jehovah's Witness framework, marriage is viewed as a sacred contract with clearly defined roles. The husband is the head. The wife is to be submissive. Divorce is permitted only for adultery, meaning that even emotional neglect or physical abuse isn't considered grounds for separation. Many women feel trapped. They're counseled to endure or pray harder. And because leadership roles are reserved for men, there's no voice for women in the decision-making processes of the faith. This dynamic can foster environments where silence is encouraged and suffering is normalized. The children and conditioning growing up in the faith. Children raised as Jehovah's Witnesses live in a very different world from their peers. They're taught early that the outside world is spiritually dangerous. School events like birthday parties, flag ceremonies, or holiday concerts are off limits. Participation in sports teams or clubs? Discouraged. Friendships with worldly kids? Strongly warned against. By their early teens, many are baptized, a decision that carries enormous weight. Once baptized, if they break the rules, they're subject to the same consequences as adults, including disfellowshipping. Imagine being 14 and losing your family because of a kiss, a question, or a personal struggle. Now, we'll explore the cracks in the armor, the rise of the XJW community. Yet despite the control, the structure, and the fear, more and more people are choosing to walk away. It's not easy. Leaving often means losing everyone you've ever known. It can mean starting from zero, emotionally, socially, and financially. But thanks to online platforms, former Jehovah's Witnesses are connecting, supporting one another, and sharing their stories. They're reclaiming their identities, finding healing, and discovering that faith doesn't have to mean fear, that love doesn't have to come with conditions. Jehovah's Witnesses are a people of conviction. Their dedication, their order, and their unity are admired by many, and for some, their faith brings peace and purpose. But there is another side, a side marked by silence, loss, and trauma. This video is not about attacking beliefs. It's about lifting the curtain. It's about honoring the courage of those who dared to question and paid a high price for doing so. Because no belief system, no matter how sincere, should ever require silence, obedience, or suffering in the name of salvation. True faith should empower. It should liberate. And above all, it should never cost you, your voice, or your family.